Senator Dayal Singh talked about and called out a lot of names. And I just have to correct the record, because when you're calling names, you must call names and have facts and figures so you don't end up in court. I ended up in court once over 20 years after being on radio 3 hours a day and so on. It was only one fella, the now member for San Fernando East, who replaced the Minister of Tourism. He took me to court over a $9 million basketball league. Of course, he lost, and he had to pay costs and so on. So that's the only time I ever reached as far as the court. But I beat him, his attorneys, A.A. Commoner, and Stuart Young, right? So let me just say the reason for that is that when you open your mouth, you must research and you must talk facts so that you don't have to come in here and hide and play a talk. You must talk outside. So when you talk the truth, when you find facts and figures, it can't end up in court because the PNM chooses to make up stories. So let me just say to Senator, the Honorable Dayal Singh, in his contribution, I'm sure he didn't intend to do so, but he just rattled off some names. And then he said these previous people have done bad things or brought our country into disrepute and so on. And he linked their names to one PNM called John O'Halloran. So I just have to correct the record, because one of those names he also called was the former Prime Minister and the second best Prime Minister this country ever saw, the Honorable Bastio Pandey, who has no case. Whatever cases were brought against him by persecution, he saw them through and he was exonerated. He was brought before the court and put into jail because he did not declare an account that his wife had. But yet we have a sitting member of parliament here who has declared on his integrity forms, has not declared a benefit of $468,000 on an apartment that he negotiated and purchased, while putting a false value on the integrity form and signing it. But we don't see him going to any jail.
Mr. Vice President, on a point of order, please. 46-6.
Member, whilst you make your contribution, not only must you keep it as tight as possible when it comes to motives and implying improper motives about members or past members, but kindly continue with your comment.
Yes, I'm just clarifying and clearing the record, because the Honorable Senator Dayal Singh, certainly I did not think that he intended to cast aspersions by linking people's names. I won't even repeat their names. To O'Halloran, let me just put on the record who PNM John O'Halloran is, and I quote from Linquist report, printed in 1987, Government of Trinidad and Tobago versus Minister Johnny O'Halloran, Mr. 10%, this PNM man, done by, on political corruption and bribery. Mr. 10% of Trinidad. It doesn't sound like much to be Mr. 10% of Trinidad. A man named John H. O'Halloran made himself an extraordinarily wealthy man. Johnny O, as he was called on the island, hadn't come as a stranger to Trinidad. He grew up there. O'Halloran's clout in Trinidad lay in the sway he seemed to hold over a man named Eric Williams.
Kindly tie this into the debate.
So,
you're explaining a name that was raised once. Tell me the relevance of it.
The relevance of this, Honorable Vice President, is that the PNM was born of corruption, developed on corruption, and has broken the law, one of the procurement legislation, and has brought us here to validate the corruption. And I am saying that this PNM, I'm going to show you also that they never wanted procurement legislation. Their track record and timeline shows that they tried to thwart it at every level. Since the Central Tenders Board Act that they thought that they were forced to bring into power, to the creation of special purpose companies by the PNM under Patrick Manning in order to circumvent the Central Tenders Board and to put boards to procure, sell, dispose of assets and spend money. So we we are not here by guess. We are here because the PNM is corrupt. They are made of corruption, and they continue their corruption by bringing us here to validate their orders that were illegal as they breach a legislation and a procurement law that they gutted previously. And now even that weakened, watered-down version was too strong for the PNM and the corrupt DNA. So I'm starting to read because Senator Dialsing called some names. And one of them was a UNC prime minister, and he linked it in the same breath with Johnny O'Halloran. Wow. So that's what I'm putting on the Hansard. So this PNM man, they continued. The movement, the People's National Movement, a political party that came to power in 1956. Williams appointed the man.
Point of order.
It's hard to listen to, isn't it?
46-1. This is going
Senator Roberts, as intellectuals in the House, we understand the point you're tying in. Can you move on from that point, please? Because it's getting irrelevant.
No problem, Mr. President. No problem, Mr. Vice President. I know it's painful for them to know who they are, but we will let the population know.